Bajitunda. All on day, the one that fits ya. Katikin Bajitunda. All on day, the one that fits.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Nile Book Club. My name's Katasi and I am joined with my co-host, Kalungi.
Yes, Kalungi Seban the Kit. Okay, today this month we're reading Open Water by Caleb Azumah Nelson, which is people are describing it as a deeply poetic book about new love, but that ends up kind of revealing the unfortunate kind of painful experiences of growing up Black in London. So do you want to start with your thoughts on it, what you thought?
Yeah, interesting. Just on the book cover, the book cover, I quite like looking at book covers because it's interesting to see how it plays out when you're reading it. And I noticed you've got a hardback. Is it a hard copy?
Yeah, I've got a hardback. You got the paperback. Yeah,
I did. Okay. So what did I think? I think it was fitting that it's February and that we read a short book, or what we thought would be a shorter read, but it was quite, I thought it was quite dense and it was packed. It was like punching with lots of detail. It definitely wasn't like a lazy read. I think Caleb really brought you in, and like you really had to pay attention. It was wonderful to read something about like the Black British experience. And I loved how he weaved in various aspects of his favorite or notable other Black British writers. So the reference to Zadie Smith. Is it Zadie Smith?
Zadie Smith, yeah.
Yeah, it was really nice. And I think quite visionary, because his book's done so well. And I wonder if Zadie's seen this reference. In terms of the content, I thought it was really powerful, and it was more than a love story. It sort of went more into the mind of a Black man, and I thought would be joined by more Black men. But I think you shall suffice in terms of identifying with it or not, because I often think that we read a lot of texts that center women as protagonists. I struggled a bit with it being second, what's the word?
Second person?
Yeah, the second person consistently, but then I got into it much later. But overall, I enjoyed it, and I think it was a really good look into what it means to be a man in this city, and it made me sort of question some of my own ideas around raising like a Black boy.
Yeah, immediately I also had, at the beginning I thought, oh, the second person thing is going to really annoy me. And it kind of did, actually, because I've kind of felt like it was putting me in the story and making a few little assumptions about my own experience. And I think even though I enjoyed it, I really enjoyed like his writing and the familiarity of like the narrative and the setting, the location, the world. He makes reference to Battersea, so I grew up in Battersea, so it was really, really familiar. Like, and strangely enough, I think I might have met him apparently, because I'm friends with someone that knows him really well, and she was like, "Oh, I think you've met him before." But I felt like in regards to what it's like being a Black male, I kind of felt like it's the kind of writing that people feel is representative of the Black male experience. Like, I think someone reads it who isn't a man, who isn't familiar with that, and they'll go, yeah, this must be it. The feeling of not being able to express yourself publicly to a woman, about how you're feeling and what you're going through. I see maybe some people are like that, but I don't think I'm necessarily that. and I think this first, it's the second person kind of the structure or technique was a bit presumptuous, like when he kept saying, you know, you go through this and you cry on your kitchen floor and you're unable to tell her how you feel. I'm like, yeah, but I don't know if everyone's like that. I think he should have gone he should have been brave enough and just said, I do this, I go through, I'm struggling with this, I do this with, I see her, I want to tell her this experience, but I can't because of this. But instead he kind of like abdicated that responsibility, or even that in fact a book that's supposed to be encouraging vulnerability, he the writer kind of like swerved the vulnerability via the second person. The second person. Had he gone I think he would have been uber vulnerable, but he kind of just gave it to the reader. And I think it might also alienate someone who feels like, well, I'm not a man, I'm not a black man or whatever, so I can just switch off. I think if he just, I personally feel it just, there was also like, I really enjoyed it, but I'm just saying, maybe I can be honest like this. It's a new year, but I also kind of felt like sometimes it was, you know how sometimes people, since Moonlight, people have like wanted to make stories like Moonlight, as in like not the narrative per se, but the kind of like technique of like, so you see some people who make films that are slow moving and some poetic voice in the background, and we're being lit with blue lighting, and it's that kind of stuff. And I felt like that's an easy way of getting people to talk about your book, and also even to use a phrase of toxic masculinity. I feel like that's really off-putting for me whenever I hear that. I once upon a time used to use that buzzword, and it's really off-putting for me when I hear that, like, because what do you mean by that? What do you mean by toxic masculinity? That's an assumption that, because there's been many dudes like myself who have been vulnerable and haven't been uber masculine all our lives. Is it because the ones that you pay attention to are now also being aware of their own masculinity? Is that, I just don't understand the phrase anymore, basically. I don't know. What did you think? Because when I talked about the vulnerability aspect of the second person, you kind of like, you didn't grimace, but you kind of went, ooh.
Oh yeah. That was, I mean, I did say ooh, but I was on mute. You said a lot there. I guess my question when you were saying that was, in my mind, who's the audience for this book? Maybe as much as it's an ode to Black culture, maybe it's not intended for your average Black London man, or maybe this is meant to put people, I'll say it, like maybe it's meant to put like a white reader who wants to be progressive into his shoes. And by making it the second narrative, second person, you're forced to be there. You have no choice. And you also have nothing to compare it to, whereas you have.
Yeah, I do have something to compare to, maybe, so the average reader who isn't me might feel like they're getting an into something that they're not used to. But I don't know that, like, I again, I thought it was very presumptuous that I'm going through this, like, you want to call her and tell her how this death is affected, but you can't. Well, how do you know that? Just say I want to call her and I want to do this. But, and also as well, and this is leaning back to the Moonlight thing, I think as well, the cover is of two seemingly dark-skinned people, because the lighting is, done in a way to make it seem like that. And she's kind of, and the writer himself, if what I'm hearing, about the inspiration, it's not necessarily about his relationship, but in a kind of weird way could be. That's not how his girlfriend looks like.
This is so true. And this is the reason I brought up the book cover, because I agree. She doesn't sound, I don't know what she sounds like, but in my mind, she doesn't, the way he describes her doesn't look like this.
Yeah, she doesn't look like that. Like his own girlfriend. This is again, is to do with the, like, if I'm gonna write a book about, say, my relationship, say I'm dating a white girl, right? And I write a book or a film that's celebrating Black love, right? But people don't know my girlfriend, how my girlfriend looks like. She's a white woman. Remember that, right? People are gonna watch this film or read my book going, wow, this guy really celebrates Black love, man. Like, two Black people together, and oh, and the girlfriend's also dark skinned as well. Ah, what a progressive guy. But then I go in the interview, I go down the red carpet and it doesn't match. You kind of start to go, did you manipulate us slightly? Did you write a story that you felt you knew your target audience or a particular audience will levitate to? Why aren't you brave enough to say, actually, on the front cover, I'm gonna put the girl that looks exactly like my girlfriend, irrespective of how people might think, or I'm gonna write a story that's a bit closer to my kind of life. That's why sometimes I question some narratives. Like when you see them, you go, yeah, but you're only doing that because you know we're suckers for that. You've made reference to that writer or to that. I'm not saying he's done this, but there's some moments where I went, oh, you made reference to that musician or that artist because you know that's the zeitgeist, that's the cool thing. And sometimes I was thinking, I was like, oh, I don't think we're all familiar with that. I don't think we're all clued up on art like that or photography like that. He is a photographer, so of course he's writing from his own experience or whatever. But I just feel like sometimes people, some writers sometimes can be a bit manipulative, and I felt in some cases he employed a few of those techniques, and to also interweave the kind of like victim of knife crime, the knife crime element as well, or gun crime. I don't know. That as well was a little bit kind of like manipulative because I feel like he didn't need that. It didn't, that wasn't necessary. I didn't think. I think that the love story was the most interesting part. Actually, when he parted from her and disconnected from her, me, myself, I was like, I wasn't that interested in the story. I was really engaged at the beginning, like the danger of him taking his Samuel's girl away effectively, them being together when it was so dangerous, that kind of like, oh, it's the distance and them, the open water, jumping in and taking risks. Like I can relate to that, But then when it started putting in other elements, it felt like it needed to be there it felt like it was put there to kind of further manipulate our emotions a little bit. And I didn't think it was that necessary personally. And it could be an unpopular opinion. And if he watches this review, he might not be happy. But I just, I sorry, I might have kind of, I'm kind of half, it's a Sunday, so I've been sleeping a lot. So, and I've eaten a lot as well. So I'm being a little more honest than maybe I usually am. But, or maybe I'm being harsh because he's a young Black writer. It could be that as well. It could be that. Maybe I'm hating in the back of my mind going, how come he got published? I don't know. It could be all of that. It's not, but someone could perceive it as that.
Okay. I mean, I did wonder what you'd think about this as someone who's obviously a writer themselves. But before we get on to the hateration or potential shade, I agree with what you're saying. A number of black artists sort of do this, where the fore of their artistry is around like Black love, and then you sort of do a little bit of research, and then you're like, okay, well, this seems a bit inconsistent. Excuse me. And I guess that kind of then puts a hole in the story where if she's not Black, maybe she's racially ambiguous, because that's also a thing, and this is something that's always trending, like Black men and racially ambiguous women who say that they're Black, and then it's like, but are they really? The whole private school thing, then I then wonder what was the big deal. So you got on a scholarship, but if you're not like outright ethnic, then it's not much of a story. There's not much of a comparison with him and her. And then, but then again, you are allowed to write. I think writers are allowed to talk about things that inspire them. It doesn't necessarily have to be their immediate realities. You can borrow from things or from other relationships around you. But I agree that sometimes it felt a bit too loaded for how short a book it was. And then it kind of felt like, oh, let's touch on Black Lives Matter. Let's touch on racial profiling. Like, let's include what the Black experience could be from music, dance, love. Like, let's just mash it all up in less than 200 pages. So that felt a bit ambitious. Excuse me. And I think that I agree with you. The love story was enough to hold it together, to piece it together. And I almost didn't think that the end, like spoiler alert, the ending and the justification of their relationship to end because he had that encounter with what he'd witnessed. It didn't seem tangible enough for him to cease contact with the unnamed woman.
Yeah, and as well, it didn't seem like he was that good a friend to that young lad. Like he made it seem like he was really good. That was like the first time he'd mentioned that kid was when he turned up at the barber shop. And that was like way beyond the story. Like, I would have understood if it was his brother. I think if his brother had been the victim of that, but this was a young lad he'd seen. We'd seen him come in contact with him for a few moments, you know, and yeah, again, that's all now people are going to be talking about is that kind of incident. And you're right, like I didn't think it was that he should have been that invested in it. Not to say that just because he didn't know him, he shouldn't be affected by it. But I just felt like he built such a big connection with this woman, and he could have. There was nothing stopping him from opening up. Like there was nothing stopping. Maybe that is the point of the book. Like it's called open water. Like he's not willing to take a risk and take a plunge, but it seemed like he did. He took a risk to ask his friend. He was clearly a brazen guy. Ask his friend, introduce him to that girl. You know, go be brazen and say, "Let me walk you home. Let me come to your home when your mom's there. Let's sleep in your bed." Da 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 da. All these things. He's very brazen to do that. But then he can't tell her that. Oh, I just witnessed. Oh, I not even witnessed it. He saw the after effect of it. Like, what? I just didn't understand that.
Yeah, nor did I. And on the subject of yeah, it just wasn't enough really. And I guess maybe if he had not deviated so much into all these little sprinkles of culture from A Tribe Called Quest, Kendrick, all these references that, you know, that he could have spent more time exploring that relationship with his friend that was killed. So he didn't basically breathe enough life into that character. So
yeah, he didn't. And it reminds me of like some of the references he was making reminds me of when, you know, sometimes, yeah, at least in the theater world, people love playing this song, The Candy. Like, you know, the Candy song. It's the candy.
yeah.
They love playing it at events, and people always get excited hearing it because it's like, oh my God, we're in a theater and someone's playing the candy. Let's all get together and start doing the candy. It's as though that is needed for their Blackness to be authenticated. And it kind of felt in some ways, some of the references, that that's what the writer was doing. There was sprinkles of including the right artists, including the right musicians, including the right, everything needed to be there to create this Black world. And it just was a bit too obvious.
So if it was a bit cliche.
Bit cliche, bit too obvious. Like, oh, you gotta have this artist in there. There isn't many Black British authors, but guess the one that exists that everybody would know, Zadie Smith. You know, I think I could be wrong. I think he even made reference to Christopher. Like there were these people that the obvious, a Tribe Called Quest, like Kendrick, like, you know, everyone that people would go, oh yes, that makes sense. For familiar ones that people would be familiar with. And it just, I don't think, I mean, I just opened up a page on, you're standing on Battersea Bridge watching the water ripple and you wonder what caused the first ripple in this situation. Like, there was just, it seemed like there was everything for everyone. Like, you know, if you've grown up in South, there'll be a Battersea reference or Peckham reference, you know, there'll be something for you, if you're in the north of London.
Carnival, West London Carnival.
Carnival was there. Like if you're West London, you know, everything was there. And it just made me think, I don't know, like how, I know, you know, when things are obvious and you reading something, you go, okay, I see what you're trying to do here. Sometimes subtlety isn't always, you know, the best thing, but I don't know, like I was reading it and enjoying the poetry of it, but I kind of sometimes was seeing what he was doing, and maybe the craft could have been hidden a little bit more and it would have been less overt, I think. Even though it was good. And I even texted my friend and told her, oh, actually, this is I could see this being a film or something, like, you know, and then she was like, oh yeah, he's adapting it. He's adapting into a film. So there's definitely like scope there for the, you know, the poetry of it. And but yeah, and you know, even the trailer he chose as well. He chose, you know, and I'm like, yeah, but that's not how your girlfriend looks like though.
What trailer?
There was a trailer for the book. It's online, and you've got like yeah, and you know, and he was like, oh, he did a dedication to his girl as well. These aren't the words, but I won't stop trying. And I just feel like you should have been brave enough to boom, describe the woman as a, you know, how your girlfriend is. Boom, put a you know, Leanne from Little Mix picture on there. Like, don't try and rope us in and make it seem like you're celebrating this. I just go, yes, this is, you know what I mean? Like that kind of, you look at it and you, you own it and go, yes, this is what I'm writing, you know, and describe how she looks like. I think he made reference to her brown skin or whatever. So
he has curly hair, and her hair kind of, but you know,
the curly hair. I do remember that. Yeah,
to be fair, not to be fair, but who knows? Okay, actually, do you know what's interesting though? This is him, and it does look a bit more like this guy.
Yeah. So he looks like the dude there, but the girl don't. And I just feel like we just, I'm sorry, bro. Just be brave. This is the person you're dating, right? This is the person. The book is about you and her and how you guys met and they loved you. You do the same thing for the cover and for the trailer, and also when you're describing it, describe as a, yes, you might get a little bit blowback, you know, oh, black men dating light-skinned girls and white girls, whatever. But this is the love of your life. You chose that. So when you know what I mean?
But to Kalungi, I don't know when this book was written and if he was with that same person. So maybe it changed. Let's just, you know, we don't know. You know,
I think he wrote it in 2016, 2017. Reason I know that is because I've been reading a lot about it. And he was round, he quit his job, he was working somewhere, and he was like in the British Museum and writing throughout that period of time. And possibly he was, I don't know when he was dating the lady, but yeah, you just can't help but, you know, it's a little bit like us as I say he is African, but like, you know, African writers say on the continent or even the diaspora, the kind of pressure we feel to write about war and poverty and stuff like that. Like even my book is a little bit about that, like colonialism and stuff like that. Like we always have to, you know what I mean? Yeah, you're going to be bored reading it, but I'm just telling you that that's what the pressure you feel like, oh yes, okay, I'm African, let me write about colonialism and post-colonial and pre-colonial, you know. So it's the same thing with my guy over here. Like, he is going through a relationship. He wants to write about how he and his girl met, but he's also got to be cognizant, don't know if I use that word correctly, of how the audience is going to feel, that his core audience. So he's got to put it, this is one of the best covers. This is a striking cover. Like, you go, whoa, two black people, a black woman striking. She's got beautiful lips and gorgeous skin tone. You go, wow, like, let me read that. Let me see that. The cover got me. Never judge a book by the cover, but the cover got me personally. Oh, she's exhaling. I wonder why. I can't wait to hear what you have to say about that. And then you read it and you go, oh, but okay, but maybe you might have roped us in and tricked us a little bit, young man. Might have tricked us a tiny bit and manipulated us.
Okay. I mean, I think what's interesting as well is it's difficult when this book has got as much acclaim as it has to meet our expectations. You know, it's up there, you know, and that's where you're starting, isn't it? And given all that you said, you know, maybe it's no surprise that it's got the acclaim that it has, because it just sort of ticks these I don't want to say tropes, but like, you know, these cliches perhaps. Yeah, but what else did I want to bring? I wanted to say that what did I want to say? I wanted to say I didn't make notes today, so.
Oh, you didn't make notes? Oh, I was wondering, you didn't have your notebook. I was like, oh.
Normally I make notes.
So let me ask, do you make the notes while you're reading it, or do you finish reading a session and then just go?
No, this was a bit different. Okay, I remembered. I think I remembered. I was gonna say, oh wait, just give me a minute. You can edit this part out. I'm sorry, Kalungi.
Maybe this remind you, if I can come back with the hateration and the
shit. Don't come back with more hateration.
Yeah. No, it's not even hateration. It's just, yeah, like, there's just certain things where it's like, they go to the right place, they listen to the right music, you know, jazz. I think if there was a section even when jazz was playing, like everything is the right kind of thing. And I'm like, let's really, when's the last time you know, played jazz, you know, as a slow jam? Like, you know, Kendrick, okay, this is probably around the time when Kendrick was popping, but Tribe Called Quest, like, sometimes it's just, you know, writing the right kind of thing. Like you said, a cliche. It's, in some cases, it was a bit cliched. And I always, what constitutes as poetic writing as well? A lot of people always talk about people's films or writing as being poetic. Surely every piece of writing is poetic in some way. You're putting words together and, you know, there's some sort of narrative or piece of literature. So there's a lot of description of, oh, it's poetic, it's da-da-da-da, but what is meant by that? What do you mean by poetic? Even I said it in the intro, you know. But yeah, I don't know. Sorry.
In terms of, to answer your question, like, I think it was very lyrical. Like, it did feel like, sometimes I felt like, am I reading the same sentence over again? Like, you know, page 48. The trouble is that afternoon, the day after she arrived. The trouble is you are not, you know. So that was quite daring. You know, that's not your usual kind of writing. You know, and their intimate, like the way he describes their intimacy. And by the way, like, it took 82 pages to get into that, so it was really interesting, like how we built it up. It was a slow burning love. But even that, you know, their meeting is urgent. So I felt like it was beautifully written. Like, I think it was very poetic. And then I think, before I make my other point, I want to ask, I often find that with in Britain, I would say mainly, like, there's always only room for one of these types of books. You know, do you feel like there's space for more stuff like this?
Yeah, I think there is. And I think there's going to be a lot of these kind of books coming out you know, the lyrical books about Black British love, because it's very rare. And maybe that's part of the reason why he made reference to Zadie Smith. You know, it's very rare you get a writer who writes, a Black British writer who writes about Britain, contemporary London, contemporary Britain. And yeah, it is beautifully written. And I think the kind of the writing around their love and their intimacy and their meeting is incredible. But I just couldn't help but notice some of the kind of tropes and the cliches, and you know, there's just things that are they kind of like the things that you know are gonna get people talking about it, or maybe it's the formulaic kind of vibe about it that I struggled with, or struggled to kind of like be convinced by, you know. I'm just thinking about the last time I was in a barber shop with a girl, and then the barber looks at me through the mirror and goes, "You two are into something. You two are into something deep." I'm like, mind your business, bro. I've just cut my hair, man. I'll cut her hair. Like, you know, very, don't know, but.
That's interesting. I'm glad you brought up the barber shop, because obviously I spend a bit of time at the barber's place, right? And looking for a barber is hard. Like, I'm trying to find a place that feels like open, and that there won't be too many suggestive sort of men. I've had to go quite far. Anyway, I won't name the particular place I went to, but generally speaking, I just find barbers they just do your hair and get on with it.
Yeah, they do your hair, or they're talking to other barbers. They don't even talk to you. They talk to other barbers about their life. Like the barbershop I go to, they don't give a damn about me. Sometimes they might include me in the story, but most of the time they're chatting to them in their Ghanaian language, or whatever language they speak. Rarely are they into my business like that, going, you know, you two are like, I don't even want to know their business. They'll tell me about their business before they care about mine.
It's a bit over familiar, and I'm just
that aspect was very kind of what's the word? I guess it's writing, so you are using your imagination. He is using the imagination, but yeah, you two are in something. I don't know what it is, but you guys are in something. Never heard my barber talk. My barber is not that poetic. My barber is not that deep. I've been to many barbers and they're never like that.
But then it had me thinking about the barbershop chronic. Is it the barbershop chronicles?
Yeah, barbershop chronicles. Yeah, which was inspired by my barbers, by the way.
What was
the barber that I go to? Yeah, that's the research. The guy, he doesn't work there anymore, but he was the consultant on that show because he was slightly inspired, or even like, yeah, he was a consultant on the show. I don't know if he was inspired by that, but go on.
Yeah, because that play is essentially about conversations with barbers, but then actually it's more around the conversations that people have in barbershops. You know what I mean? The chatter and all that. And luckily my husband comes with me to the barbers because like as I've got a fan club, like not a fan club, but my fan club, but my
admirers.
No, that was a Freudian slip. Like
we got you today.
No. But do you know what? Now that if we're gonna be honest, okay.
Oh, the honesty.
We're gonna be honest. When I finished it, I was like, I felt flat.
Oh.
Okay, I felt really flat when I finished it. And I think because it's come at the time like post Panda, I'm really not looking for a book that's just too familiar. And I've realized most of our picks take us really far away. And, you know, if it's in the past or like the continent, and I think I realized that I want a bit of escapism, and it was just too local for me.
I think that might have been part of my issue with it as well. It was the local aspect of it should have been maybe the thing that was most attractive, the USP. Like he mentions Battersea Bridge. I'm like, I should have been going, Battersea. But when you start mentioning that, then I start being uber critical then, I think. Then I start going, okay, but my barber's not like that. My barbershop is not like that, you know? And for a guy he should. I guess he is a photographer. He did travel there. What was he on? Was he on the big bus tour of London? Like he went all over London, like West, you know, like he went everywhere. But yeah, like the familiarity of it was a bit. Yeah, you start kind of questioning the authenticity when you start, and then maybe I guess everybody's life is unique in that that's his experience.
Yeah.
That's what he's been through, and we shouldn't necessarily be so critical about it. But yeah, I think it's because, yeah, sorry, go on.
I mean, not we, as in, I think, but owning stuff, I, as Kalungi.
Well, you were just critical about it just a few seconds ago.
Not as much as you have been.
Wow, thrown under the big bus tour. But yeah, okay, I was uber critical of it. And I guess maybe, yeah, there is a little bit of like, I think sometimes if it was maybe an American writer, maybe I would have been gushing over the writing. And so if it was set in Brooklyn, whatever, I would have been gushing over it. So there is a little bit of that where you're looking around your area and you go, well, there's nothing lyrical and poetic about this. Like, why are you writing about this? Like, okay, that's a bit too much. Like when you go to the Peckham cinema, whatever, Peckhamplex, it's not that exciting. It's just...
it's Peckham Levels, right?
Well, I think did he mention Peckhamplex? Didn't they go watch a film
yeah,
or something? Yeah. So loads of things. Yeah, there we go. Oh my God, how by chance I literally opened up on a page that talks about Peckhamplex. Literally Sunday evening, she asked if you wanted to go to the cinema in the afternoon. Peckhamplex, £5 tickets and the promise of audience participation. Well, again, that's another one of those cliches where it's like, oh, you're in Peckhamplex, therefore there's going to be loads of Black people talking back at the screen. When I've been to Peckhamplex, there's hardly been anyone there. There's hardly, because they're big ass cinemas, and maybe it's the time where I've been there, but there's this, again, because you're in Peckham, there's going to be this. Well, it's not necessarily always that. Like, you know, you don't need to kind of like use these tropes to rope us in. Like I could have got the Peckhamplex thing without you having to mention Peckhamplex. Like there's probably other cinemas maybe he as a writer has been to, but he chose Peckhamplex because he knows that's the thing that's going to make people go, bruh, Peckhamplex. Those are little things I'm clocking. That's what I'm saying. Maybe he's more of a Curzon guy. Maybe he goes Curzon in the Soho Theatre with him and his girl, but for part of the narrative and the story, he's going to choose Peckhamplex and he's going to choose Peckham, you know?
Potentially. I mean, what was also interesting was, but I hear what you're saying, when someone's closer to you, in the same way that we were very critical of We Are All Birds of Uganda, you're going to go in hard because, you know, you have this affinity towards this thing, you know, you're going to protect it and you know it quite well, you know. Would you have preferred if he had described everything quite vaguely? You know, and this, like if we think about our last review with Gurner, he was talking about an unnamed area in Tanganyika, Zanzibar, but so he created a completely new world. Would you prefer he said like the bridge that goes over certain blah blah blah?
You buy the bridge. Maybe, yeah, you stand by the bridge, the water ripples, You go to the cinema, it's one of those bright, crazy cinemas with a lot of audience participation, maybe. But it's just when you start mentioning these things, I start going, you're trying to do something here. You're manipulating me a little bit, a tiny bit.
And again, I guess if we think about the readership again, like the majority of people who read this book, I don't think will look like us, Kalungi.
Yeah, they won't, because when I went to Waterstones, the white lady behind the counter was suggesting this book for me. She's like, oh,
no.
Yeah. She's like, if you're looking for a poetic book, try this, is great. And I was like, already read it. Read it already. She was proper, yeah, she was recommending it to me because she must have read it and went, I know who would like this, a young Black male. He would take so much from this book because it's about him.
You should have asked her. Why do you say that and why are you telling me?
Yeah, why aren't you recommending War and Peace to me, huh?
Yeah.
Why are you not recommending? Why have I got to read this, huh?
How
you know I ain't read it yet? Yeah, how do you know I ain't read it yet, huh? Which I had. She thought I was going to be like, oh, thank you. Oh.
that being said, I got mine from Waterstones too, and I got a discount because I'm like that now.
If you're black.
Yeah, because I'm black. Basically, I decided because it was this, I didn't pay the paper, but the price on the books, $8.99. Online is cheap. You got to haggle, people. You got to haggle.
You got. Oh, how did you get that? How did you get the discount?
I just saw online, and I said, "Are you going to match the price?"
Oh.
The other thing I felt like it didn't come out much, and I just wondered why, was the dancing element.
Oh, when they were dancing in the club, right?
Well, there was dancing in the club, but her being a dancer was like was quite like was what captivated me. Like, oh, okay, I want to hear about this, but there was hardly any mention of that.
That's
All
another.
and I heard more about her being in Dublin and whatever than actually her artistry.
And therein lies the manipulation. That's another one. That's another manipulative technique. She just has to be a dancer. You know, it has to be two creatives. I'm a photographer, you're a dancer, you know. Why couldn't she just be a random teacher? Why could she be unemployed or work in the city, whatever? She had to be someone creative to go with the image of either the lyricism, and then that because it was half baked, that's why it wasn't even explored, because it was half baked.
And when it was just her referencing on the playground how she could move or whatever.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I wanted more of that, and I just wondered where that was. But to be like, what I did like, I liked how he described the transition of the summers and the winter, and it was just life before a pandemic, you know.
Yeah.
Going to barbecues, like it felt like a whole nother world, really.
It did, but yeah, we were bamboozled a little bit.
Oh wow.
Tricked a little bit. I don't know. She just had to be a dancer and here creative, and don't know. You don't have to do that. Like, so the ordinary could also be just as interesting and extraordinary. And then you made a dancer and did nothing out of that. And then you made them come from a private school and you only talk about it a little bit at the beginning, but then you don't kind of bring that back, how that's affected you now. That's how that's maybe enriched their relationship or affected their relationship. You know, it seemed like another one of those, two black people from a private school. This is going to be interesting. What was the effects of that? How did that impact their lives? You know, what? But then it's just dealt with at the beginning, and then I don't remember it kind of returning.
Yeah, and then I think when I was trying to establish her, like more about her identity, why they're nameless as well. I'd want to ask him why he left them nameless. She says at the end, like, you're moving mad, and that kind of threw me. I was like, okay. I don't know why in my mind I think they're quite. I actually think she's quite posh.
Oh yeah.
So then you know when she's annoyed at him because they're not. He's gone quiet. She says that you're moving mad. I was like, okay, that's interesting that she speaks that way. I didn't think that she would.
Yeah. Don't know, like, you know, when you just can't put the finger on the pulse of like why, like, it's supposed to be a good book and it is a good book, it's been praised and everything, but you just read in between the lines and you go, something's missing. There was something there, like something that could have maybe made it a bit more rooted in not just reality, but just in truth, and maybe will have a bigger impact in the future. And maybe it wasn't written for me, because all these things you were saying, you do this, it's either, well, yeah, duh, I know that, or, well, no, I'm not going to do that. I wouldn't do that, you know? So yeah, so I kind of like wondered you asked earlier, like, who's it written for? And the people are reading it. Like, if I wonder, and I don't want to question your opinions, but I wonder if I had said that this was a great book and it resonated with me as a black man, would you have seen some of these shortcomings, or would you have questioned some of the stuff? Or like, if I really connected to it, would you have like, how would you have maintained your stance, the same stance?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. I mean, I guess the whole thing around being seen, that was quite powerful. Being seen, like, what does it mean to be seen? That kind of,
Mm.
we haven't spoken about that. We probably don't have time because we're wrapping up. But would I have? No, I mean, I think these are valid points that were made around some of the holes or some of like the cliches. Like you can still identify with it, like with vulnerability, and still ask for stuff.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, the fun, and I think he even, oh my God, I even talked about bell hooks. You know, we real cool. Yeah, but yeah, I think we should. Yeah,
But Kalungi, maybe this is the opportunity for you to write your own London,
maybe.
own
Yeah.
London. And I guess the other thing that was missing for me was
Mm.
the Ghanaian experience as
Yeah.
well.
Mm.
You know, he made reference to his grandmother and things like that, but the household, what did that mean? What does it mean to be Ghanaian and living here? That doesn't come
Yeah.
out for me, but
Yeah. No, no, I clocked that as well, and I just hope that maybe we as I hate this phrase again, but we as Black men or Black creators, when we write stories, we can write stories that are either not presumptuous of like what people expect of us, to like the kind of stories we are expected of us, um, or that are just wide and like they have a more interesting scope. Like, you know, it's not, we don't always have to write about toxic masculinity, like, because it feels like I always question who we writing this for. Like, what do you mean by that? Like, why are we analyzing toxic masculinity? Like, what does
but
that?
you made that reference earlier on. Where is
Mm.
the toxic masculinity?
Well, he doesn't make it kind of explicitly, but the fact that he struggles to open up, and he struggles to, or he's shocked by how much emotion, there's an emotional outpouring when, say, for example, he's at home by himself, and even the kind of relationship between him and his friend, just how it kind of like becomes really tight, and they separate because of the girl and how it happened, and when he meets, and even the friends, like, yeah, don't chat to me again, whatever, they meet again, and he's, so he may not have said toxic masculinity, but there is a discussion around that. Like, the book feels like it's a commentary on that, because he's unable to actually open, like, literally that's the thing that stops him from going, I can't speak to you about this, so I cannot tell you how I feel. Like, he turns his back on her because of that. And even the real cool reference, the bell hooks thing, that's literally line by line from a bell hooks essay or book called We Real Cool, which is an essay on toxic masculinity. So that's what I meant. Yeah.
All right.
A good place to wrap up, you think?
Great place to wrap.
Okay, well, thank you for a short book that has kind of inspired a long conversation. So yeah.
Yeah, we'll see you next time.
See you next time. Okay.
Katigen dije bajitunda, all on day the one that fits ya.